Hello, and welcome back to the Building the New World Conference. This is our final weekend. It's our grand finale weekend, and I'm very excited to share the fact that in addition to the roundtables from the thought leaders and futurists who have been joining us for the last 8 weeks, we have Susan Stark Christianson with us, who is going to lead us in a session on heart sharing and sacred listening, which is a perfect foundation for what's coming next, which is the roundtable. So let me tell you a little bit about Susan. She's an award-winning journalist currently living in Juneau, Alaska. She's the owner of Christianson Communications, an advertising and public relations firm, and also the Walton Group Publications, a publishing business focused on promoting work by women. She's also a former Deputy Director of Communications for the state of Alaska's Office of the Governor. During her tenure, she developed a successful advertising campaign to bring awareness to the issues surrounding domestic violence and sexual assault in Alaska. Her other volunteer work has included serving on the board of directors of the International Cross-Cultural Alcohol Program and organizing the Spiritual Unity of Tribes Gathering of Eagles, which was held in South Dakota. She is the author of Women's Voices, The Wisdom of the Grandmothers, and producer of a documentary entitled The Wisdom of the Grandmothers. This project was the fulfillment of a dream for Susan. It also was a life-changing opportunity to meet and be inspired by the incredible mothers and grandmothers she met along her journey. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you very much, and I want to thank you very much for inviting me to participate. If you don't mind, I'd like to start with a prayer opening the directions, and then I'll go into a little bit more of what our topic is today. To the winds of the south, great serpent, wrap your coils of light around us. Teach us to shed the paths the way you shed your skin, to walk softly upon the earth. Teach us the beauty of your ways. To the winds of the west, mother, sister, jaguar, protect our medicine space. Teach us the way of peace, to live impeccably. Show us the way beyond death. To the winds of the north, hummingbird, grandmothers and grandfathers, ancient ones, come and warm your hands by our fires. Whisper to us in the wind. We honor you who have come before us and you who will come after us, our children's children. To the winds of the east, great eagle, great condor, come to us from the place of the rising sun. Keep us under your wing. Show us the mountains we only dare to dream of. Teach us to fly wing to wing with the Great Spirit. Mother Earth, we've gathered together for the healing of all your children. The stone people, the plant people, the four-legged, the two-legged, the creepy crawlers, the finned, the furred, and the winged ones, all our relations. Father, Son, Grandmother Moon, to the star nations. Great Spirit, you who are known by 1,000 names and you who are the unnameable one. Thank you for bringing us together and allowing us to sing and dance the song of life. Creator, we ask you to put your words into our mouths, your spirit into our hearts. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit more in a traditional way. I actually have 3 names. My Hebrew name is Sarah from my mother's side, and my Tlingit name is Chaaksik, which means eagle daughter. I was adopted by Tlingit elder Jim Walton. His Tlingit name is Klaak, who was the leader of the Kagwantan Wolf House of the Eagle moiety of the Tlingit people. When Jim Walton passed away, his daughter said, "My dad always said an Indian can always put an arm around one more person. The more diverse, the better." And I've always been so grateful for the fact that Mr. Walton, my father who adopted me, my Tlingit father, put his arm around me and was such a wonderful mentor for me and for my life. I always say when I'm giving a presentation that I'm not nervous and I'm not crying. I actually lost my ability to speak due to damage to my vocal cords, and that difficulty influenced me in many, many ways, because it taught me the importance of not only my own voice, but women's voices and the voices of all people in the world. Today, I'm not really representing the Indigenous Grandmother Circle. We do things as a circle, and the format of your conference didn't lend itself to the experiential way in which we wanted to share the importance of circles as well as sacred listening and heart sharing. But I am here today with their blessings and their support. And I'm here representing my project, the Women's Voices Project. And I wanted to tell you a few more stories. What I wanted to tell you first about what initially brought me here to your conference. Initially, I made a comment on a comment board of another Peace Circle effort, in which I said I didn't think that technology alone was a solution to the problem of peace, because so many people are left out, and specifically Indigenous voices. Stephen Dinaco, who I just have grown to love and respect, replied to that comment. And we had an email exchange in which he put me in touch with Laura. But honestly, that's not really why I'm here. The reason I'm here is that my mentor, my father, Jim Walton, always said, "You don't ask why on the spiritual path, on the good red road. You only ask the Creator, what can I do next?" When I asked that question after receiving an invitation to participate in this conference, I had a dream. And in the dream, I felt the presence of a woman. And I was told in that dream that sharing about sacred listening and about heart sharing was an important message that I needed to share with your group. That there may be someone here to whom that message was really important. So because I've learned not to ask why, I'm here today from a spiritual kick in the butt, because I think that sharing what heart sharing and sacred listening is going to be important to someone here. And I hope that I can speak in a way that this message can be heard. I am a member of an international grandmother's circle that has wrestled with the question, what is important from each culture to bring forward into a new world of peace, and what needs to be left behind? We believe that all cultures have something to bring to the circle of humanity. Grandmother Diane White, who's one of the members of our circle, was married to a Lakota elder by the name of Gilbert Walking Bull. And she shared with us his teaching. And what she said was that sacred listening is listening to every person as if when they speak, you're hearing the voice of the Creator, that it's the voice of God speaking. Let me repeat that. Sacred listening is listening to every person when they speak, as if the voice of the Creator, the voice of God, was speaking. This is not easy. Heart sharing is a learned way to speak in which we often, not always, close our eyes and speak not from our head and not from what's in our head, but from what's in our heart, where we speak our own truth. Hopi elder grandmother Percy Ami, who helped to open this conference, teaches this in a different way. From her traditions, she's taught us that you only speak when your gut, your heart, your spirit, and your head are all in alignment. Learning these ways of speaking has not been easy, especially for me. It took a lot of patience and a lot of practice. It's looking for the space between the words. And often it's listening for the pain that exists underneath the words. When we sit in circle, we often pass the feather or we pass a rock so that we know when the other person is finished speaking. When you look at movements today like Black Lives Matter or Me Too, or all the current political differences that we have in our country, the ability to understand what's underneath the words is so important if we're going to be able to hear each other and find peace. I'd like to give you an example. In my work, I interviewed elders who 50 years after being out of boarding schools and having their mouths washed out with soap for speaking their indigenous languages, couldn't talk about those experiences without crying. After a young man heard one of the elders speak, he said, "We young people want to get beyond the pain." That is true and very important. But if you don't understand the cultural biases, the systemic racism, and the organized genocide many cultures and many people experience, how can you heal? How can we all heal? And how can we move beyond that in order to achieve peace? It's our belief that learning how to listen in a sacred manner, how to share our hearts and our truth in circle work, how to achieve equality through circle work and consultation, these are all important tools for bringing about peace, because listening to all voices and all cultures and making space for all to participate is an important prerequisite for bringing about peace. I'd like to share another brief story. When the United Nations was formed, leaders went to the United Nations from indigenous cultures from all across the United States, and they asked to be seated. They were not seated, they were blocked by the United States government. And when later on those elders looked at how the United Nations itself was set up in a horseshoe rather than in a circle, and they realized that many cultures were not there, many nations were not there, they said that they didn't feel that it would be this organization that would truly bring about peace. It was shortly after that that many of them began sharing their sacred cultural practices with many other people and began putting their arms around those who were not part of their own nations and their own cultures. I have another brief story. I went to Australia as part of my work, and I was told a creation story by an elder. He told us when we were out in the outback, far away from city lights and where I could see the Southern Cross and stars in a way I'd never seen them before, that if we looked up and we looked at the black spaces between the stars, we would see the sacred bird from the creation story laying on its side. I was so frustrated. I looked and looked and looked. But everything in my upbringing, in my culture, in my experience had taught me to look at the stars. And I couldn't see the black spaces between the stars. Finally, I just gave up in frustration. And the minute I did, I looked up in the sky and I could see the bird laying down in the black space between the stars. And I looked over and the elder was looking at me with a big smile on my face. He knew that I had seen it in that moment. Many cultures that I've experienced in my travels and in my life and where I live, cultures that have been persecuted, where there's alcohol abuse, where there's domestic violence. Many times the only thing that other people know about these cultures are all of the problems. They often don't see the true wisdom that these cultures have to offer. And I have found that these problems are the result of systemic racism that's still going on today. We believe as grandmothers that learning to see the black spaces between the stars, learning to listen to the pain underneath the words, sacred listening, learning to share our individual truths from each of our heart, no matter how difficult those truths may be to share, is the starting point of consultation. That is where consultation can begin. And that is where consultation to bring about peace has its starting point. One of my other teachers and elders, Adelina Alba Padilla, who's Chumash elder and the spiritual leader of the Chumash tribe, has taught me that intellect alone won't solve the problems or create peace. So I have one more story I'd like to share. And then I have a brief video from grandmother Adelina with her own words. The story I'd like to share is one that she shared with me about how she learned to sing a song that her mother taught her after her mother's death. She learned the song in her own language, she said, in a dream and in visits from her mother after her mother had passed on. When she sang the song to her own people, many of them said, that song isn't our language. That is not a Chumash song. But years later, when some of the young people from the tribe wanted to learn their Chumash language and their Chumash songs, they went to this museum in Santa Barbara and they listened to recordings that had been recorded by a very famous anthropologist at the time from the Smithsonian Institute by the name of John Peabody Harrington. He had been taught songs and taken around to learn about the Chumash culture from a man by the name of Fernando Labrado. When the young people heard the songs on these recordings from the late 1800s, early 1900s, one of them said she had chills run down her spine because one of the songs that she heard was the song that Adelina had heard from her mother, had learned from her mother in her dream. How is this possible? Well, I'd like you to listen to Adelina's own words on a very short tape that I have to share with you. And as you prepare to go into your consultation to talk more about what you've learned through this conference, I hope you will listen to each other as if the voice of the Creator is speaking. And I hope you will speak your own sacred truths. I also hope, and it is my sincere prayer, that you will learn how to find ways to listen to the voices and cultures that may make you uncomfortable, and that you will learn to listen to your own sacred dreams. Stephen, if you wouldn't mind playing the video, and then if we can come back for a moment, I'd like to close the directions with a prayer. Thank you.
And so I know that the Creator speaks to me, to everything that is on the earth, speaks through me, with me, and walks with me. And every single leaf, every single tree, every single herb, every single plant. And my ancestors, through the clouds, they make forms that I can see them. My children say, there is a legacy with you, Mother. I don't feel that. I just feel that the only thing that takes us there is the old ways of the people, the fire. And that fire will always burn, as long as it burns in every single Indian, in their heart, in their spirit. Our mind can go crazy on us and take us to different directions. But a heart knows love. It just goes to sleep for a while, but it knows love. And that love needs to be nurtured and given. And that's what the fire does for us. That's what our traditions do to us. Brings it back. And when there's hard times, we go to our fire and brings all the stories out and brings all the things that we need to know. Our ancestors, they want us to acknowledge them when they appear in the clouds, when they appear in the sky, in the night, or when the rain drops and we think, while they're crying for something. The storms come, they're telling us, hey, you know, we're sending you this storm so that you can learn, so you can know that if you ask us, we will be there for you. There is no storm that we can't get over. No tragic thing that comes in our lives that we cannot override. For the Creator, He's with us. They say wisdom is lost. It's not lost. The tree has a voice, and the wind has a voice. The star people have a voice, and the mountains have a voice. And the earth between us, underneath us, has a voice. And all that is above has a voice. The elements, we are part of that. And I am so happy that they chose me to be able to be a wisdom keeper.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for the privilege and being allowed to participate and share briefly with you a little bit about what some of the grandmothers with whom I work think is important. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but just as an ending, I'd like to close the direction with this prayer and also writing that I got from my sister, who is a beautiful, beautiful Tlingit woman in Alaska. And I'll just read it very briefly. Be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasure to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer to the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of your pledge. Be unjust to no man and show meekness to all. Be as a lamp to them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a sea for the thirsty, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all your acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm for the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind and a guiding light to the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the hosts of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of human heart, an ark on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of your generation, and a fruit on the tree of humanity. Thank you very much. And thank you, Creator.
Susan, thank you. I truly believe that your prayers, your stories, your good wishes have prepared the path for the collaboration that we're about to have, that we're about to witness, actually, with some of the speakers who shed their wisdom for all of us during the course of the conference. So I really want to thank you. And I hope our paths cross again. I think they will. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to segue into a roundtable. And Stephen and I need to switch links really quickly. So we will see you in just a minute.